Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. It is the dynamic duo of the GSMC back in the flesh on the ones and twos and sometimes the threes and fours. Brice, Ethan and Brice, we're here. Brice, how are you doing today on this Monday as we tape this on Mondays? You know, we have 2 Monday night games and a Tuesday night game, so 3 more football games for week 13, but you know, a lot of things have gone down anyway, right? So first, tell me how you're feeling. I know we had a second part 2 of rivalry week, so I know things are kind of tense over there in Falcon land, but here we are.
I mean, I'm doing all right, man. It's just being getting through it like everybody else, man. Not really too much been going on, really, for the most part. But I'm doing well, you know. Still living, still breathing. Can't be mad about that. So that's pretty much how. So that's pretty much how life is going. How about you? How are you?
You know, same. Just living, breathing, trying. Not too much going on. Things get colder, and you know, COVID just stay rising. So it's not feeling too good over here in the U.S. too much. The news, try not to watch the news too much because it's starting to get a little bleak again. But basketball's about to start, so that's fun. I get the Zion looks like Duke Zion right now, which makes me ecstatic because I'm tired of the Zion fat jokes. They can go somewhere else. That's it, you know. First practice, Stan Van Gundy did all defense. So that's clearly what the emphasis is going to be for training camp is how to defend. And yeah, man, I'm excited to see what the Pelicans are able to do and see if maybe they can get some of that New Orleans Saints magic going on because the Saints are 10-2, which is awesome. But we're going to talk about the AFC first. We had I don't really know what to say about the AFC. Besides the fact that the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC, right? And then the Steelers just have the unlimited record, right? The unbeaten record, and the Chiefs are the best team. Everything else is just toss-up, matchup stuff because no one expected Cleveland to do what they did to the Titans on Sunday. I certainly did not. I was feeling like the Titans were the dark horse team in the AFC. As they were starting to warm up, they looked like they were playing really good football. And we all know their defense isn't all that special. Borderline bad. No, it's bad. That's a bad defense. And they just got routed for majority of the game. And then, of course, you know, Tannehill threw for 300-something yards to try and come back. But honestly, the game was over by second quarter. So the effort was just not all the way there for majority of the game. Derrick Henry probably had his worst performance in the last 3 years, I think, as far as on the ground. You know, the game got away from them pretty much after the second quarter. So it's not like they needed Derrick Henry to run the ball that much anyway. But, Brice, how do you feel about the Titans or how do you feel about the Cleveland Browns now as they're legitimately a playoff contender?
Well, you know, I look at Cleveland. I mean, if you look at the way they're constructed, we know they have two of the best, well, probably the best running back tandem in all of the NFL. They have a much improved offensive line. Their defense, back end is susceptible, but front seven is probably, again, one of the better ones in the NFL as well. And so you see it coming together. You know, with head coach Kevin Stefanski, a guy who's new. People wondered, how would he do in that situation? And he's brought a new presence and a new culture to Cleveland. Because Cleveland's not used to being 9-3. Cleveland's not used to being up 31-7 at half or 38-7 at half. And he's introducing them to all of these things. Baker has been very up and down this year. This isn't the first big performance he's had. I forgot who he had 5 touchdowns against earlier this year, but he's had big performances, but he's also had bad performances. And look, they're 9-3. Looks like more than likely they're going to make the playoffs unless they collapse down the stretch. And basically, for the most part, I think we have to sit there and give credit where credit is due. We don't know what the rest of the season is going to turn out for them, but I think for Cleveland, I think this is just a good first step for them as a franchise. Because can you imagine being a part of a franchise that never wins? And I don't mean like, oh, they just don't win Super Bowls. I'm talking about just have winning seasons, just actually could be 500. And you really haven't been that since what? The last time I think Cleveland made the playoffs was 2001, 2000. So almost for 2 decades now, they've been basically non-existent and irrelevant. I think it definitely puts you in the right, direction. We know Cleveland fans, even though COVID has not allowed for fans really too much, we know Cleveland fans are very passionate about their team, even after all the losing seasons. And now just knowing that they have something they can fall back on and say, hey, we're actually good. We're actually not the laughing stock of the league. We're actually a team that you have to respect and say, okay, Cleveland's coming to town. We got to play play one of our better games. I think it's just something that I think they're all going to take pride in. And, we've been talking about, coming into the season, would this be potentially Baker's last year if he didn't play well? And at least right now, if he continues to play this way moving forward, the answer, it looks like he'll be here the next year after that. Plus, on top of that, they are taking advantage of the fact that Baker's still in his rookie deal, so they're able to supply him with the weapons that they do have around him. Because I believe he has a 5-year. Do you remember if they picked up his 5th-year option yet? Do you remember if they did or not?
I don't know. We can get the interns on it.
Okay, I don't even know if they got to that point yet. I just can't remember. He might, because this is his 3rd year in the league, right? So, yeah. Okay, no, so they would have to pick it up this coming off season. So, if anything, they'll probably look at it like, okay, we can go ahead and pick up Baker's 5th-year option. But
they haven't picked it up yet. It says
okay, that makes sense.
A month ago, they're like, it's not really cut and dry on his 5th-year option.
Okay, that makes sense. So overall, man, like I said, Cleveland looks good today, man. And they're a team that, if you don't play your best football, you can be beaten by this team. They are a very well prepared, well coached team, and could give some people some trouble in the playoffs when that time comes around.
Right. How do you feel about Baker Mayfield now? As this is probably his best passing game performance, probably in his career. Maybe, I don't know. He put up a big number. He is a candidate for the FedEx, I think, air to ground player of the week thing. So that's pretty. It's pretty new. As I was doing a research right now about the 5th-year option, and then I see that James Harden still has not reported to training camp. So I just found that pretty funny. I saw that he went to the strip club. It's just Houston things, man. Who would have thought?
Yeah, man. But on Baker, I think he's kind of, he's kind of giving me Jared Goff vibes without the Super Bowl year, where he was basically good all the way to the Super Bowl, where every week you don't know what you're going to get from him. He's either going to be bad or he's going to be good. And his biggest thing is consistency moving forward. Him, trying to be better. Baker came into the season saying, he's not going to talk as much. He was going to put more effort into the film room, more effort into his game to try to be better. And it looked like, oh no, it's like the same Baker, especially when the first game was Baltimore. And he's had games like that. I mean, he had the game against Pittsburgh. I remember the last 2 weeks, they've won ugly. They won 10-7 against Washington. They haven't been beating teams, and he hasn't really played that great in those games, but they've won. And, I think it just really helps out with them that, for me, I think Baker's one of those guys you can probably tell he's not a guy who can carry the team. He's not a guy who, it's like you're down a lot of guys. Okay, Baker, carry us. I don't think he's like that. He's one of those guys where you're going to have to put a lot around him. You're going to have to make sure it's working around him. And if that happens, then you have a chance to be successful. I think that's what he is. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's not a good quarterback. Because sometimes we like to look at that and think he's not a good quarterback because he can't just have a trash offensive line, no receivers, and barely a running game and still be successful. Because, why would you want to intentionally put your quarterback in that situation to begin with? So, I think Baker is fine. I think this also could be potentially a Derek Carr situation as well, where if Cleveland looked at the situation, I feel like if there was an opportunity for them to get a better quarterback, I would see them looking into it. But at the same time, there really is no point to, I guess, restart because you don't even know if the next guy you get is going to be better than him, and you don't want to set your franchise back. So they're going to have to make that decision probably not this offseason, but the next offseason, because Baker's going to be due for a contract, and then we'll truly see where Baker is, and we'll see what Cleveland really thinks of him. Because I don't think he'll get paid anywhere close to top 5 money. Some people think he might just get $30 million a year, which, again, you may say here, that's not even, I think, top 6 or 7 quarterback money.
It still might be too much money. I'm not going to lie. Exactly.
That's what some people are going to say. They're going to say that's still too much, even though in terms of the quarterback market, that's like almost kind of in the middle between 20 and 30. And so, it's naturally something, do you really want to give Baker that kind of money, knowing that when you pay your quarterback, you're not going to be able to retain everybody, knowing they might lose some guys, stuff like that. So we're going to have to see when that time comes. But right now, I'm fine with Baker Mayfield as a quarterback. Like I say, he's inconsistent, and you don't know what you're going to get week to week. We don't know if he'll even go on one of those runs that Blake Bortles went on when Jacksonville went to the AFC Championship game, where he just happened to play decently well enough for them to get to the AFC Championship game with the playoffs hit. We don't know because that's the thing about an inconsistent guy like Baker. But you see flashes, you see talent. He's always been somebody who can be an accurate guy. It's just about him putting it all together and then now doing it on a consistent week-to-week basis.
I don't know, man. Baker Mayfield is something else, man. He's a character for sure. I don't know if he's that good at the quarterback position, but I will say I think when he plays better, I think the league is better for it. Like, I think Baker Mayfield being good is a good thing for football, and I don't want to see Baker Mayfield fail. That's not a good thing. It's like everything else. I don't want to see Lamar Jackson fail. I don't want to see young quarterbacks struggle. We all want to see young quarterbacks turn into something, what they were projected to be as. Like, I think it's weird in sports when we start to wanting to see players be bad. Like, I don't know why that is a thing. Like, people pick who they want to be good, and then everybody else can literally go burn in obscurity. Like, no one wants everybody to succeed, and I think it's a pretty toxic thing in sports culture, and I'd like that to change a bit. So go on, Baker. Do your thing. Make your money. Because at this point, he's been ran through the dryer, so to speak. It's weird. It's kind of like he took over a situation that the Browns were getting past Johnny Manziel, right? And it's like all the Johnny Manziel, I guess, haters or critics probably is the more accurate term to be, kind of slid into Baker's DMs and basically have gotten real estate in the Baker Mayfield hate train. And, Baker, he was when he was at Oklahoma, he was very cocky. He was very braggadocious. And then he came here and the NFL humbled him pretty badly. And now he's just trying to play football. And I think that's the best thing for Baker to do. Like, we got to remind ourselves, Baker wasn't this highly recruited talent. He was always this kid who had his chip on his shoulder and whatever the case may be. And now, we're seeing this is like a different Baker in a sense of personality. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's a leader on the Browns, but what they ask of him to do is working, right? Hand the ball off, don't make mistakes, take your one shot when we ask you to, and then keep moving. Like, people have won football games like that for years. You don't always need Patrick Mahomes to get to the Super Bowl or get to the playoffs or things like that. You don't need a Patrick Mahomes. It's very nice to have, but it's this whole ideology that you have to have Patrick Mahomes, you have to have Aaron Rodgers to win, it's not true. And I think now more than ever, we're starting to see a lot of parity in the league and a lot of good quarterbacks. Like, there's very few great quarterbacks, right, out of 32 teams, right? There's only maybe like 6 great quarterbacks week in and week out. But there's a lot of good ones, right? And I think that's fair to say. So with that, we're going to take a break and we're going to continue into the AFC as other things also happened. GSMC will be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, GSMC, we are back here, me and Brice, and we're still doing the AFC. The playoff structure is starting to form itself. Things are making way. Things are making shape. And the Jets are still losing games. Brice, we have to talk about it. The Jets sold on purpose. They chose to lose on purpose. And they decided to do 2 birds with 1 stone. They were going to lose so bad, they were going to be able to fire their defensive coordinator first. He was the first to go. So this only shows you one thing. They purposely are keeping Adam Gase until Trevor Lawrence is secured. Then he will go as well. The tail has been cut off. The head will be next. Brice, what do you have to say about the Jets?
Well, I mean, Ethan, it's kind of funny. As a defensive coordinator, you know Greg Williams very well. Obviously, you have history with him, and you know the kind of defensive coordinator he can be. Very aggressive.
He's a hooligan. Yes.
Exactly. I talked about all the clashes him and Sean Payton got into, and he's a guy who been with the Jets, I believe, since this past year. And basically, he sold, man. He sold because Hail Mary came and he said, we're going to send 7 guys on a blitz. And yet you don't even have the fastest player on the field. The Raiders do. And they beat you. And it was just like, well, why didn't we play a prevent? There's a reason why you play prevent. But you won't send a blitz when all we had to do was knock the ball down. And we lose. That was probably their last best chance to win a game this year. And it's horrible, man. Just that play call was horrible. It kind of describes the Jets season. They're about to be the 3rd team ever to go 0-16. And it's not good, man. It's not good, man. And some people wonder, should they have fired him? Yes, they should have fired him. You can't. There's just a certain line you don't cross that embarrasses the organization. And Greg Williams embarrassed the organization. Now he's embarrassed 2 in his life. So I'm sure this man somehow is going to get another job somewhere else. But it just was not good, man. Honestly, if you think about it, the last 4 weeks, the Jets have been in some competitive games. We have to be real about that. They almost did beat the Patriots on Monday Night Football, and they almost did beat the Raiders. So, of course, they're playing harder to not lose a game. But at the end, man, they're just losing it, man. The Patriots game, they didn't really sell. They just made some plays late. Cam made some plays late. This game, you could say, yeah, this is the type of game that makes you think, I wonder if Greg Williams did that on purpose to lose. Because it's just no way you make that type of call. Literally everybody on today, on every radio show and every talk show, is saying that was one of the worstest defensive calls ever. His own safety, Marcus Mays, came out and said, why did he call that? He has to help us out, and he called that. So, man, it's sad, man. It's sad. It's sad the Jets are like this. And honestly, man, like they said, they're going to can everybody. It's like Sam Donald's not going to be there, man. This is going to be a whole new Jets team next year. And after the way this game just ended, and this is a replication of their season, bro, they need it. They need it desperately.
Listen, the Jets know what they're doing. They're going to let Greg Williams take the heat, and this is the way that it was always going to be. But let's remind ourselves, this is the motive, is to tank for Trevor Lawrence, or should I say tank to reserve the number 1 overall pick, because it's the biggest piece of leverage you have. And there's still, what they've done recently is remind Trevor Lawrence that they can still win games, right? The NFL is a competitive league, and it has a lot of parity, and it's a lot based on matchups and situational awareness sort of things. Like, it's really rare that you get like an NBA situation where like the Golden State Warriors in their heyday are playing like Charlotte, and they're just going to beat the brakes off of Charlotte. Like, the NFL, you could end up doing that to people, right? But it's like, at a certain point, the pride the NFL players have in themselves, they're just not going to roll over. Like, there's too many factors involved to lose that bad every week. So in reality, they did this to showcase, okay, Trevor Lawrence, okay, Justin Fields, right? Even when we lose, there are small things that can showcase competitiveness, and we're not going to be losers forever. And I think that's the biggest thing why we haven't really seen a Eli Manning situation like in recent years where somebody just refuses to play for somebody, because at the end of the day, a lot of these teams are tanking. Like, believe it or not, like, I still think that NFL teams don't necessarily do the basketball or money ball tanking, stacking draft pick sort of situations, because they only play 16 weeks of football. These players are putting their lives on the line. Their money is not guaranteed. And in order to get their next contract, they have to play well. So I don't believe that's everybody's in agreement that this is the tanking strategy, right? But I will say that front offices, they do understand what it takes to get to the number 1 seed, and they are going to do everything in their power to secure it first. Before anything else, if they know that their season is cooked, they are going to secure a draft pick before it's all said and done. So if Jacksonville would have won this week, I guarantee you this would be it. I think next week they have like 4 weeks left to try and secure the number 1 seed. So they are going to continue to keep losing until it's secured. And that's just the end all be all of the subject matter. Greg Williams was the scapegoat who was going to be fired anyway. So why not? Why not do it now when you don't have, there's no other reason not to. It's not like their players have spoken highly of Greg Williams. It is what it is. It's all a part of the big scheme.
I have a question, though. Do you think, after Jacksonville came off a game where they could have beat Minnesota, did you ever think owners or people up front kind of say, hey, man, listen, I know that they're not playing to lose? Because the players never play to lose because they're trying to, look good just in case they're not going to be there next year. But do you ever sit there and think they talk to them about, hey, listen, that was a little too close for comfort. I'm glad that we're playing well, but let's not get into those situations where we could win.
Well,
do you ever think that conversation happens?
I think it's possible. I also think that they don't do it to players because they don't want to end up putting the thought in their head that there is a foregone conclusion that they won't be there next year. Like, I could not imagine a GM going to Sam Darnold and saying, yeah, man, it's 3 years in the game, but we're looking to move off of you now. Like, he's not going to tell that to Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold's going to talk to his agent. They're going to find a way to get out of there and go to a different situation. Like, that takes all the leverage away, mostly from the ownership. Well, that takes some leverage out of ownership, and they give some leverage towards the player. And that's not what they're going to do. What they're going to end up doing is they're going to evaluate what each and every player does for them like they normally would. And let's say Sam Darnold balls out the last 4 games of the season and wins, right? And let's say they get, instead of the number 1 pick, they have like the 5th or something like that, or like they're still top 5. Probably takes them out of the Trevor Lawrence Bowl, but now they have this decision to make because Sam Darnold played so well. Do they really need to move off of him or not? And maybe it is just an Adam Gase thing, which I'm pretty sure it still is. Like, I still feel like we have not seen Sam Darnold at his best NFL potential, and that's due to the situation he's been put into more than like his own ability. And I think he needs to leave the Jets. He needs a fresh start somewhere, like Tannehill did, right? But at the same time, it's all about what you do with the time that you have been given, right? This is all like, we talk about auditions all the time in the NFL right now. Like, Raheem Morris is having an audition. The interim coach for the Detroit Lions is having an audition right now as far as what he is able to do, because it looked like he was trying to get a head coaching job at some point way back in the day. So players have auditions too, right? We all understand the Jets situation. Everybody does. Like, that's just the case may be. And that means the players know what the situation is too. And if they don't want to just be tossed aside for like a 5th round pick, and they want to actually go and compete for a job somewhere, they have to play well no matter what. Like, there's the likelihood of Sam Darnold being the starter for the Jets next year is probably like a 30% chance, in my opinion. And him going somewhere else in a trade is probably a higher percentage chance than where he would be. So he has to try and, play a little bit better, show some promise, show some ability, or else teams are just going to be like, why do I want Sam Darnold? Like, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would, like, coaches are pretty selfish and pretty self-centered. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I can fix Sam Darnold. Or, oh, yeah, like, I would pay good money to hear what Sean Payton would have to say if Sam Darnold was somehow on the Saints. Like, oh, phenomenal. Look at his arm talent. Look what I've done with Taysom Hill. Look what I did with Teddy Bridgewater. Like, look, Bill Belichick with Sam Darnold, he's seen Sam Darnold play for what, 3 years and two weeks in, like, of a season each time. He knows what Sam Darnold is. I'm pretty sure he could get probably the same effectiveness out of Sam Darnold that he gets out of Cam Newton. And I don't think that's too hot to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's something definitely you have to keep an eye on going into the off season for sure. I mean, I think Sam, he really didn't play too bad this past game, and I think that he's still young, he's still talented, but like you said, he needs a fresh start, and I think I agree with that. I think a fresh start would be very much needed. There's going to be teams who need a quarterback who may not be able to get into the Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields sweepstakes. So it definitely opens up that possibility there for, Sam to go to another team. Probably will be a better team than what he's on currently. And then we truly get to truly evaluate him and see how good he truly is as a quarterback of a decent team and see what he can be. Because I think that's the biggest thing we're going to be looking for is, can he be an actual good quarterback if he has something put around him?
Yeah, I think that makes quite a lot of sense. And what do you, real quick before we go to the next segment, what does this mean for the Raiders? Because the Raiders kind of been slipping, and their defense has definitely not been anything to write home about for the betterment of the last 4 weeks. We all know they played tough against Kansas City, right? And they can put up points like the rest of the league, but their defense is it's not great. So giving up 28 points to the Jets is not something that you want to have on your resume. So real quickly, how does this move on for the Raiders? They get a win, but I don't think a lot of people make this feel like it was a win for the Raiders.
I mean, listen, NFL, is sometimes be a wild place, and they haven't played that well, but they won, and they're still in the heat of the playoff race. They still have, games to go. They have a big matchup with Miami coming up in a couple of weeks. Obviously, that's going to be for probably potential the tiebreaker in the wild card. So they still have things they're playing for. They still have the capability of doing it. Derek Carr didn't have a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. So, again, it's not obviously offensively, it's defensively, and they didn't have Josh Jacobs either yesterday. So, Darren Waller also had a huge game. But overall, I just think we knew Las Vegas' defense was never that good. And so it's not surprising to me that they have games where they're struggling because their back end's always been an issue. And, I mean, for the most part, that's why they try to be a team that wins time possessions because that's less time their defense has to be out on the field.
Right. Well, let's take another break, and then we'll get into the NFC. GSMC will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, GSMC football fanatics, football fans, nation, people, those who enjoy the sport. It's me and Brice still, and we are going to the NFC where we are going to have to talk about all this seeding stuff that's going on because teams are losing, teams are winning, teams are sliding, and people are upticked, and the Saints are still at the top of the NFC, so things are still living good, baby. You know what I'm saying? Big wins in the chat against the Falcons, where I'm not going to lie. I have a friend named Sean. We went to school together, actually. I don't know if you know him, but shout out to Sean. He called me, big Falcons fan. He said, this was during the third quarter when it was looking like we were about to score before the Taysom Hill fumble, right? He called me to say congratulations on securing the division, potentially going to the Super Bowl and winning it all. The Falcons stink. Trade Julio because he can't stay on the field. And he was just doing the whole, woe is me phone call. He doesn't do this often unless things are at an all-time loss. So when he called me, I was very shocked. And then after we hung up, all the bad things were happening in the game. And I thought he put a curse on me. I thought he put a curse or a hex or he jinxed the game in order for the Falcons to try and come back and win the game. And I was going to be very upset because I don't like it when people do this. When the game is not over yet, then they start giving you the congratulations. And I thought that's what he was doing. And thankfully, that didn't end up happening. Saints defense is not like it was in 2013 or 2015. Life is good, once again. I think that puts the nail in the coffin for the Raheem Morris coaching ranks. What do you say as a Falcons fan? Because I think this is the think this is the game that he was supposed to try and win for real if he wanted to, save his job, or not save his job, but, come back as the actual head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. So what do you think?
Well, overall, I don't know if you've been checking up with Falcons Twitter and everything, but just point out one thing. Raheem Morris has done a good job for us. I appreciate everything he's done for us. He is not a bad coach. You see, we've obviously played by. He's got our defense playing up to standard and everything. We've only allowed 20 points a game in the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And that shows that we've made improvements of teams. We're getting better coaching all around. Second, you know who we're blaming today. Dirk Cutter is the worst offensive coordinator that we've ever had in the history of Falcon football. Because when he ran it 3 straight times, we were driving in
worse
the
than
fourth quarter.
Sarkisian?
Yes, because we got to think about it. Sarkisian did improve in his second year. This is Dirk Cutter's second year, and I don't see an improvement in the offense. And he should have been canned when Darren Quinn was canned, because, like I said, when we ran it 3 straight times, if we had passed it, we probably would have scored. I believe that wholeheartedly. We probably would have scored if they would have just threw the ball. But he wanted to run it. Then Ty Gurley wanted to play hero ball, knowing he's not Ty Gurley of 2015. And
that's honestly what sealed your fate.
That's what cost us the game, really.
Yeah, because it put you at, what was it, 3rd and 9 at that point?
Exactly. It was 2nd and 2. And it's like, all right, let's do it. Either do. And honestly, after the second run was fine. You got to pass it on 3rd down. You can't sit here and just say, we're going to run it again with Todd. I'm just like, what? That's why everybody was questioning the play calling. People want this man gone. Why do you think when they asked Raheem Morris after the game, what's your confidence in Dirk Cutter? He said, I have confidence in the team. There you go right there. So he basically even knows it too. This man has cost me this job. He won't say it publicly because, respect, political correctness, but he knows because that was unexcusable. Everybody hated his game plan the first time against you guys, and everybody hated his game plan the second time. And they even said when we blew out Las Vegas, our offense really didn't play that great. And so,
no, you guys had 4 turnovers in the game.
Exactly.
Like you made 4 turnovers.
And so that's kind of where I kind of stand with that. But I mean, Raheem is fine. But I think Blank and McKay are very eager for change, which I understand. Like I said, if the new coaching staff wants to retain Raheem, that's fantastic. That's great. If they don't, wish him the best wherever he goes. But listen, we just gotta see what happens, man. We gotta see who we hire. We gotta see who we bring in, man. We basically helped you clinch the division, so you should be thanking us right now. You know what I'm saying? Because Dirk Cutter sold us, and
well, we sold ourselves. We shouldn't have won that game. Taysom fumbled twice, inopportune times. Sean Payton got too cute trying to pass it in the red zone when all we needed to do was just hand the ball to Latavius Murray and win the game. That was it. And then multiple times he's trying to, build Taysom's passing confidence. And sad thing is, he didn't even make him pass the ball. It was a run. Or actually, no, he was passing on that play. It was a bootleg. Or he escaped out the pocket, and then he got hit. And the ball came out just the same way it did with Matt, which you can argue both of those might not have been fumbles, but it is what it is. They called it the same both ways. So I could honestly feel like that game, Falcons fans felt like the refs were on our side. And then there were parts of the game where I think the Saints fans were like, okay, the refs are like, I don't know who the head ref was for the week for the Falcons Saints game, but the way he would just say pass interference, defense, like I don't know why. It just sounded like there's a little extra oomph whenever he would call a Saints penalty. So I wasn't a fan of him for majority of the game.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, hey, like I said a few weeks ago, man, how does it feel knowing that we've gifted you your next year's starting quarterback?
I don't believe that is the case. I believe he's being evaluated on a week-to-week basis. I think Sean Payton really does enjoy Taysom. He is the Saints' son at this point, I assume. And it's all fun and games now. But it's only because we know that Drew Brees still might come back for the season. If Drew Brees was not coming back, I think there would be a lot more pressure on Taysom Hill than what it has been so far. He's played 3 bad teams in a row, and by 3 I mean 2. We haven't really seen Taysom Hill play a good team, a good defense. Well, no. The Denver Broncos is a good defense because they gave Patrick Mahomes and them some work, even though a touchdown was not called for the Chiefs last game. I don't know, man. The NFC's weird. We're at the top of the division. The Eagles are imploding. Like, talk about backup quarterback drama there. What do you feel about the Eagles? Because although they had like a little spark, we saw Jalen Hurts throw his first passing touchdown, which was it was a nice pass. Like, made me think that things were going on. It's kind of funny how he left Alabama and went to Oklahoma. He got benched. He took it like a man, basically. He got benched, came back in that bowl game and won it for him. And then he went to Oklahoma, did his thing, and then he got drafted to a Carson Wentz situation to where now it looks like Carson Wentz might get benched for him. It's like a small little redemption story. What's going on?
I still can't believe that if they tried to cut him, he'd count $66 million against the cap. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, they already gave him the extension.
But the thing is that a lot of other quarterbacks who are getting paid more than Carson Wentz really doesn't even count that much against the cap. They'll just count really what their salary is. This man is basically going to count double what his salary is against the cap. And I'm just like, dang, if y'all cut this man, y'all basically have no money. And you lost even more than if you kept him. But yet, potentially, Jalen could be the future, maybe. And then you got to decide what you got to do with Carson. Now, listen, we do have to keep this under, a lens here. The Eagles' offensive line is bad, and they have no weapons at receiver outside of their tight ends, which have been banged up most of the year. And I feel like that it's contribute to Wentz's eroding mechanics. And we always knew he was a decision maker who makes bad decisions. He's done that for the year, regardless. So, maybe he just needs some quarterback rehab, like what Baker's going through right now. Get him some weapons, get him an offensive line, maybe get him a new head coach and a new system, and see what happens. And if that doesn't work, all right. When that cap number drops next year, all right, Jalen, you ready yet? And we'll go from there. Because I feel like Jalen will get the first look as the Eagles quarterback before anybody else would, just because he did give them a little spark yesterday. And again, if he does start this week and he plays well, it's going to create a very interesting scenario. So kind of for the spiciness, for the intrigue, I want Jalen Hurts to start this weekend. But, it's a shame what's happened to Carson Wentz.
Listen, I keep saying this week in and week out. If they don't want Carson Wentz, if somehow the Saints can make the money work, come on through. We will fix you. As you've been able to see, it can be done. I can't imagine the Eagles taking, if the Eagles despise Carson Wentz that much to take a $65 million cap hit to release him, Carson Wentz would legitimately be on a roster in the next hour. He would be on a plane somewhere within the next hour to the Jaguars, to New Orleans, to, I don't know, Indianapolis, any place with an old man playing quarterback. The Chicago, even though Chicago's offensive line is bad too. It's just hard to believe. Coaches think they can do anything. So when they see Carson Wentz, they just see talent. They understand all the bad things that come with Carson Wentz. But the good things that he's been able to do in his career are so ridiculous that you're like, this guy's talent is there. You just have to rein him in. You have to teach him how to, one, not play hero ball and just be the starting quarterback for your franchise. Like, that is it. Because the talent has always been there. That's the whole reason why he's been given this many chances this year, last year. Like, people have been giving Carson all the chances because of the talent threshold. And, you know, as much as I like Jalen Hurts, right? I wanted the Saints to draft Jalen Hurts because we saw what we did with Taysom last year. And he would have been cool to be in the Taysom position. Clearly that did not happen. Does this mean that I believe that, you know, Jalen Hurts is the future for the Eagles? He could be. He didn't look horrible. But let's keep in mind, it's not like the Green Bay Packers prepared for Jalen Hurts to come in the game, right? That's not something they prepped to do. So we have to remember when things like that happen, teams aren't prepared for their backup quarterbacks to come in the game and start running scripts, and, you know, they're not game planning against him. They game planned against Carson Wentz, which they dominated against. And that one drive where, you know, Jalen Hurts is running up the field a few times and he throws a nice dime for his touchdown pass, you know, that's not something that was scripted out. That was not like a scripted first play drive or first drive of the game sort of stuff. That was just, he was just playing football at the end of the day. So you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. And you'd have to see what he does if they do choose to start him against New Orleans, who has a really nice pass rush and has a good front seven and good corners and stuff like that. Because I don't know if you want to put Jalen in the fire like that, per se. You know, that's one of the, not to toot our own horns here, but we're like a top 2 NFC defense and top 5 defense overall in the league. Like, it is not going to, that's not a game that you want to put your rookie quarterback in. And all the same, it's not a game that you probably want to start turnover present, you know, Carson Wentz. So.
Man, yes, that would be the best quarterback action of the week. You got the Mormon Tebow versus the Hurt. Yes, sir. The Hurt business.
You just say the Mormon Tebow? That is insane.
Yes,
I can't lie. Anything over like 25 yards, I'm quite afraid of what Taysom Hill is throwing. He throws line drive passes. This is all like that pass that almost got picked off by Tyrell Jr.
Yeah.
That was like a line drive, like no air, perfect. Like it was not, it's weird. It's weird to say that the dude is accurate and also not at the same time. Like he has really good short yardage throws, but it's just, he's a strange player. But let's take our final break. He also
kind of has.
Let's take our final break and I'll let you get that point in. GSMC. We'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, Brice, get in your last point. What do you have to say about Taysom? I'm ready to hear it.
I was just gonna say that he has a very interesting mechanics. It feels like he sometimes I saw him more in the first game than now, but he would kind of feel like he's just jump throwing a little bit, or he kind of throws a little bit off balance. But he uses a lot of his arm strength to get into the throws because he's a strong guy. So where I think this game he looked more fundamentally sound in the pocket.
Yeah, and I think Taysom is his throwing motion is very strange. Like when you know that he's looking for the deep ball and he's stepping up in the pocket and he's trying to load up the throw, you'll see him do the 1 hop, 2 hop, and then pause and then throw it. Like, we understand that the Saints haven't seen a quarterback with arm strength in a long time. So it's really kind of
since what, the Aaron Brooks days?
I mean, young Drew still could throw the ball down the field. It wasn't like he was throwing 70-yard bombs, but he could throw a 50 bomb on the dime. Like that was what he did. But as you can see, the arm has deteriorated with age. Taysom's arm, he can throw it down the field, but it is not like, it's not Justin Herbert. It's not, it's barely Sam Darnold. Like Sam Darnold still has a nice deep ball throwing ability. Carson Wentz can throw the ball down the field really nicely. Even Jameis probably has the better deep throw. Like Jameis makes throws because of his arm talent better than any person on the Saints. Like that's just fact. But Taysom Hill, he just has a little bit more arm power than Drew. Because you see him, he does this wind up, and half the time the ball is still underthrown. He did overthrow Tommy Lee Lewis badly, and Tommy Lee Lewis looked for a flag. But even if the flag was thrown, you could argue that it was a not catchable ball because he threw it like 10 yards ahead of him. Like I don't think Tommy Lee Lewis was going to get up and catch that football in double coverage. Like that was a questionable deep ball that he threw, and he threw it basically away. Like he threw the ball away. So it was not fun to watch Taysom work outside of like the 30-yard range. But, you could see he's had some accuracy issues. He's kind of trying to hit Michael Thomas sometimes. And there's a lot of drops in this game too between both teams. Like Falcons and Saints games are weird, man. I don't really know what to say. They annoy me. I don't like playing them because if you lose, it makes you upset. If you win, you have to remember that the team is going to come back 2 weeks later and try to beat you down. It's never fun, right? It's not a fun matchup. It's just annoying. So I was nervous the whole time. Maybe the players were kind of nervous too. Alvin Kamara looked weird in the first half. Like he looked like he was fine on the field, but you could feel like something was weird about this game. And I couldn't really put my finger on it. But, yeah. Also, side note, I feel like the Falcons respect Alvin Kamara much more than any player I've ever seen get respect from the Falcons. Like, when they tackle Alvin Kamara, they pick him up. They be like, oh, yeah, man, good run. they don't
yes, sir, the ACL connection.
Yeah, they don't. There's no disrespect when it comes to Alvin Kamara. I know they don't like Michael Thomas. They don't really say much about Drew Brees because he's been whooping their tail for years. So they just say, yeah, he's good. It is what it is. But yeah, I think they're cool with Alvin. They're not trying to beat up on Alvin Kamara. But
yeah,
outside of that, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's probably about right. We got to see what happens, man. We got to see what happens in the future, really. With both teams, man. With both teams, because we're going to be headed in some new directions next year. Both of our teams, regardless of what happens. But obviously, I know y'all have a...
We didn't even talk about Matt Ryan. Another stinker. Golly. Matt Ryan was just... We just have him. We have his number right now, man. I don't know what to tell you. He just can't get in a rhythm right now. And, of course, it's not like you guys were fighting for a playoff spot realistically. But the play of Matt Ryan has not been good the past few weeks. As you said, even that Raiders game, it wasn't like the offense was on fire. Just kind of won the game.
Yeah, I just think Matt's one of those guys. I think he needs to find someone who kind of sees the way he does. And I think that's what made him with Kyle Shanahan work so well together. That after that first year of trying to figure things out, they were able to get on the same page. And then you saw the magic Matt could create. I think, when you have guys who kind of see things a little bit differently than him, sometimes you see the struggle. I think Matt is definitely a rhythm kind of guy. And I sometimes don't think we necessarily do a lot to put the offense into a rhythm. Like I said, we've already talked about the play calling, but also, literally, again, based off what I've seen on Falcon Twitter, a lot of people aren't really blaming Matt for yesterday's game because They understand the scenario, they understand the situation. I just think everybody's just pissed about Dirk Cutter. I think that's the main thing. But it just, overall, we're just like, listen, he didn't have a great game, but he's not the main reason why we lost this game. So that's the big thing here, So really, the two people that people are most pissed at after the Falcons game is Todd Gurley, just because he tried to be a hero, and Dirk Cutter. Those are the two people who are pissed. I mean, the two people who people are pissed at. And I think, and listen, I'm fine with Todd Gurley being there next year. I just think we need an explosive, elusive back in there too, so we can kind of rotate this thing, because we need to be running no outside pitches with Todd Gurley or any type of cutbacks.
Yeah. Travis Etienne probably might be on your radar then, even though I would not want to see Travis Etienne in the NFC South, but that might be something that you guys might be looking at.
Last time I checked, we were in the top 10. I think we were 10th in draft picks, and we didn't win. So potentially, I would think, I don't know if you want to take a running back that high at 10, but you're going to have some interesting options at that position.
I wouldn't say. I don't know if Travis Etienne, he's first round talent, but I don't think he gets drafted in the first round. Might be other things, things people are looking for. Because you got to remember, there's a lot of players that opted out that we just forgot about.
Mm-hmm. That is extremely true. And they're expecting this draft to be really good this year. So,
well, Jamar Chase, he didn't play. Michael Parsons didn't play. There's a couple guys.
That offensive tackle from Oregon didn't play.
Yeah,
he's expected to be a top 3.
Yeah, one of the best offensive lineman prospects since Quentin Nelson. So it's the Pro Football Focus grade on him is actually insanity. Like, he is that good. And
the craziest thing is he hasn't played a lot of starts in college. Like, he's not one of those guys who's like 30 plus starts. He's like, I think when I saw Oregon game, he only played like 18 starts. So I was just like, dang, at 18 starts, y'all know he's the best prospect in the entire draft. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. How do you feel about the? Go ahead. What'd you say?
Oh, I was about to say. So, I just want to get into some Drew Lock talk real quick.
Oh God.
Quick question, man. We know Drew Lock now. We have to admit he be flexing on him now, but his numbers don't reflect where he be flexing. I don't think you watched the game last night. I don't know if you did, actually.
I did.
But okay, so you saw, I think it was the second touchdown he threw, where he was kind of having his hand up to his ear. And then we know what happened when they came back with the Chargers. He was hitting it on them real quick. First, I gotta say he needs to calm down. Okay, calm down. You're not that good. Second, Denver's gonna have to move off of him. So Drew Lock might be on the market this year. And listen, people say he has some talent, but they feel like he's kind of Baker Mayfield. He thinks he's better than what he is, and he needs to be humbled. And so definitely see Drew Lock potentially not being the quarterback of the Denver Broncos next year as well.
Denver, I don't really know, man. Like, I don't think Denver believes in Drew Lock fully right now. I mean, they understand that he is their best, I guess, case scenario. But Denver has a lot of talent across the board. They had a lot of injuries in the beginning. And, Drew Lock's been in and out of the lineup himself. It's not like he has been able to kind of get a rhythm, per se, but it's not like he's been playing well. Like, that's not an excuse. So, at the end of the day, it's not like Denver has lost that many games to really be in the big-time quarterback discussions, but you can sit there and be like, hey, man, look at the Alabama quarterback, for example. We might see him get picked up at some point. Like, he's definitely a legitimate prospect. We might see who else is there's like 6 quarterbacks at this point that people are saying might go in the first round besides Trevor Lawrence, of course, Justin Fields, and then the guy from Dakota State, Trey Lance. And then there's Kyle Trask at 4. Mac Jones, and then there's like another one who I can't remember off the top of my head, who is kind of like a dark horse quarterback to be taken. So That's at least 5 right there off the top of my head that I know are probably going to be drafted highly. So are there 5 teams that necessarily need a quarterback? Could you say that are going to be in the top 5?
Yeah. For the most part, we already know 1 and 2 for sure. Probably will need a quarterback. Potentially Dallas, maybe. I know Bengals are 3rd. They're going to go. They're probably going to stick with Joe Burrow. LA's not. The Chargers aren't. Houston's not. Cowboys, like I said, I don't think they will, especially since they're not going to be in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. Eagles are probably going to go with Jalen Hurts. I mean, you really might not see a quarterback drafted probably till later in the top 10, like maybe 10, 9, 11. Because that's how the first 2, the teams that are kind of with the worst records lining up, depending on how it all shapes up, kind of has a guy or a guy that they look forward to seeing next year, unless someone trades up or makes a big trade.
Yeah. Regardless, I don't think that the Denver Broncos are, stuck with Drew Lock. They can easily move off of him. There's other veteran quarterbacks that might give them a better chance to win. But we understand Drew Lock and the arm talent and the youth and all that stuff. And I think he's generally likable. I think that's the big thing. Like, it's hard to hear quarterbacks become unlikable. Like, I don't think people dislike Drew Lock. Not to say that there's always quarterbacks that people just don't like. It's just one of those things. It's like, I think he has a personality that people tend to gravitate towards. Just not the play hasn't really come together yet. So I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they have him, like you said. They don't necessarily have to move off of him, but I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if they draft one like a Trey, or maybe if Zach Wilson, this last game was Coastal Carolina, maybe not help them too much. Maybe Kyle Trask, potentially, maybe a Mac Jones. We don't know. We'll see how that part of the quarterback draft shapes up, but just something they can look into. I'm sure John Elway, you know how he is. He will move off quarterbacks quickly. If you ain't working after a year, he'll move off you quick. So, and, this season has kind of been a disaster for them, starting with Von Miller getting out for the year to start the year, and then injuries across the board and quarterback being hurt and inconsistent play and just a lot of different things have happened this year. So this has been a very, probably one of the most tumultuous years in Denver Broncos history overall.
That's probably true. But I think that's going to wrap up the podcast, man. GSMC football podcast here. We do this, at least a duo, every Tuesday. So we'll be back next Tuesday to talk about week 14, how that turned out. Shout out to all those who made it to the playoffs in fantasy. It is what it is. If you didn't, you're free now. That's all I have to say. You're free. No more pain. But GSMC, thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the podcast. See us on social media. We'll be back next week, man.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.